Want to tackle one more interesting question. This question is previously asked by IBM, Apple, and Microsoft. It is considered a hard question. Let's dive into the question and we can talk through more nitty-gritties and interesting facts. The title of this question is New and Existing Users. It is asking us to calculate the share of new and existing users for each month in the table, output the month, share of new users, and share of existing users as a ratio. New users are defined as users who started using services in the current month. There is no usage history in previous months. Existing users are users who use services in current month, but they also use services in any previous month. Assume that the dates are all from year 2020. They also give us a hint. Users are contained in user ID column. Okay, so taking a quick look at the table will help me understand and wrap my head around better before I start to formulate the logic. So let's take a quick peek at the table. So there are ID, time ID, user ID. ID is essentially the row number I can think of. Time is the time when they have leveraged services. User ID is an indicator of the user. Customer ID is the type of service looks like. The client ID is the device through which they have leveraged the services. Event type is the kind of service that is being leveraged. The CTE approach in this context, my CTE 1 is to identify extract month is my first CTE. I'm going to extract the month from the time ID that is given in the fact events table. I am going to bring my primary indicator, which is the user ID. We do want to identify the users and bucket them into new and existing. So I'm going to bring the user ID and extract month from time ID. I believe it is a timestamp. If not, it is good to convert that into a time or date to ensure the data type is consistent. So I'm going to call that the month, keep it simple. And I do want to bring the activity indicator, which is the definition of leveraging the services. So I'm going to say, I want to get the case when an average user can leverage the services more than once. So that's the reason I'm bringing a sum function here. So I'm going to sum or count. I can use either one of them. I'm going to use sum here. Case when event ID is not null. So that is an indicator of services that are being leveraged. Event ID is not null, then 1, else 0, and as active flag. That's going to help me understand if a user is active or not. So I have that intact. Fact events, and then get the aggregation at a month and user level. So we have the first CTE complete. Now I do want to get the minimum of the month where the user has their first activity. So my second CTE is to identify first month. I'm going to bring in user ID. That's going to be helpful for me. From the first CTE that we have created, CTE1, extract month, and minimum of month is going to be called as the first month indicator. Okay, and then we just need to aggregate this by user ID. Okay, after bringing the first month and extracting the month from the time ID, I would now want to formulate the logic to identify the share of new users and share of existing users. Case when a dot month is equal to b dot first month indicator, and a dot active flag is greater than or equal to 1, at least one activity within the month, then I'm going to count the user ID. Okay. Else null. And so this is going to be my numerator for share of new users. I'm going to make sure this is a ratio and also convert the data type to float. Now I'm going to work on the denominator, which is count of all user IDs. And this is share of new users. Very similarly, since the logic is pretty much the same with slight nuances, I'm going to copy this part and compute the share of existing users. Okay, so share of existing users, let me quickly change that. And a simple change where the first month is current month is after the first month. That means there is activity in the previous months. And everything else will remain the same. That's the share of existing users. And simply bring in both CTEs, CTE1, as the primary table and do a simple left join. Bring in the second CTE and combine them on user ID. We do want the aggregation. Okay, looks like we have the share of new users and share of existing users. And that's accurate solution.